Brodes Media.
The Phillies had a job. When you looked at these 6 games to start the season, they needed to go 5-1. Now, 4-2 could have been okay. 6-0 would have been glorious, but that's a very difficult ask. Sweep and take 2 out of 3. That was the real objective. They passed that test. They can't choose who's on their schedule. They can't pick who they're playing in the first 6 games. Lucky them, they got to go up against a 100-loss Colorado team and a national squad that stinks. The Braves, who are winless and blowing 5-0 leads and then getting walked off by Shohei Ohtani, yeah, they had to go on the road on a West Coast swing, go play San Diego for 4 games, find out that Profar is going to get suspended for 80 games and can't even play in the postseason. Oh, by the way, they follow up that series by facing one of the strongest rosters ever built in Major League Baseball history. I mean, this is just how it fell. Out of their control. They did what they needed to do. They found a way. This is where things get interesting, though, as we look ahead to the Dodgers with some phenomenal pitching matchups. Sunday is Christopher Sanchez and Tyler Glasnow. You got Sasaki and Aaron Nola. You got Yamamoto and Luzardo. I looked this up, by the way. Luzardo's over-under is set at 5.5, with the under being favorited by like minus 140. Free money. Free money. I'm just saying. Free cash everywhere. Crazy, isn't it? Here's the truth. There were a lot of good things that came out of these 6 games. And there was a lot of frustration. When the opponent gets more difficult, when the players on the other team are Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, that caliber. What happens if you strike out with bases loaded 3 straight times in the meat of your order? What happens if Brandon Marsh is silly on the bases? What happens if out in left field, Mickey Moniak isn't there to drop a routine fly ball to give you life? What if the starting pitching that you're facing is elite, and then you get to the bullpen, and it's not the same relief pitching that the Colorado Rockies have? You see what I'm saying here? And I don't know the answer to that question. Maybe the small ball works. Putting the ball in play, moving runners over, a dribbler 4 feet in front of home plate scores a run from third base. Maybe all that flies. Rob Thompson is managed with a purpose. He's managed with urgency, keeping Sosa in the game, going with Trey Turner and then putting Rojas in the game. He's made decisions that scream winning is important even though it's game 4, 5, and 6. I'm trying to apply urgency. Now, speaking of Sosa, the one thing I didn't love is not getting him in the action for this final day that Taijuan Walker pitched because he's too hot to leave out. Sorry, Boom. Why does it have to be that because Edmundo Sosa is a utility player, he needs to bite the bullet? This is the team game, right? Well, when someone is the best hitter in all of baseball to this respected point, that's eventually going to cool off. I hate to break the news to you. That's not going to last forever. That is going to go back to the mean eventually. So when he is tearing the cover off the ball this irrationally, take advantage of it. And guys like Bohm should understand, or guys like Stott, or guys like Trey Turner. Sorry. This is a team game. Sometimes you need to do what is best for the guy next to you in that clubhouse. And the way Edmundo Sosa's going right now, I think it's a no-brainer that he should have found a slot into that lineup for that final game against Colorado. What are we doing here? That's the one thing I didn't love from Rob, but majority of it was 2 thumbs up, and I saw that there was a different look in his eyes, and I thought that there was a different way of attacking. So I hope that that bleeds into this Dodger series because let's be honest, in a way, this is almost a test. We want to see what this team is capable of doing. Now, that doesn't mean they have to go sweep them. But here's what we do need to see. Real competitive, back and forth, in the game type of baseball. You got to show me you have what it takes to be in it. You can lose 2-1. Like, hear me out. And I know this sounds like loser energy, but for games 7, 8, 9 of the season, if you told me the Phillies lose game 1 by a score of 6-5, where both teams were kind of throwing haymakers back and forth, all right, then you win game 2 with Aaron Nola on the bump, who throws a quality start, and your baseball team wins 4-1. And then the final game, you lose 3-2. There's a long way to go. You're going to learn a lot about yourself. You're going to keep attacking. You're going to keep growing. You're going to keep battling. You're going to keep, getting after this thing. The Mets last year, they were ready to sell at the deadline. Fans were pissed at where they were at the deadline with Steve Cohen. This team's a disaster. They're in the NLCS fighting against the Dodgers, 1 series away from playing in the fucking World Series. So my point is, what happens in May, what happens in April, what happens in June, it doesn't tell the full story on who you are going to be once you get to the fall and once you get to the promised land and once you see what it's like when it starts to get super chilly and it's football season. So there's a long ways to go no matter what occurs in these first few games of the season. But I want to at least walk away knowing that you're very close to a team that on paper, nobody's going to be able to contend with that type of talent on paper. There's just no way. That's insane. That's absurd. Well, if you're right there when it's all said and done, when you compete on the diamond, then I can take a positive out of that. Now, that sounds like loser energy. I know it's always about the W's and L's, and it strictly is, do you have enough or don't you have enough? But there's definitely positives you can take away from a series that plays out the way I just labeled it. What if Luzardo throws a gem? They lose the game, but Luzardo throws an absolute gem against that lineup. Nola, bounce back. Sanchez. We got to learn about Sanchez in this role. We got to learn about Luzardo. Now, they don't have to face Freddie Freeman because he's hitting the 10-day IL with that ankle injury or so. So, I believe it was 10-day IL, right? I think Bob Nightingale tweeted that out a little bit earlier. That's a big bat. And he seems to be a killer ever since I can remember. Every time Freddie Freeman walks up to the dish, I want to cry. So at the end of the day, it really comes down to, I'm very proud of what they've done through the 6 games against bad opponents. They did what they needed to do. They did enough. Well, it got a little weird there with Alvarado, and even Matt Strahm had to battle some toughness. I'm strange, and I actually like the fact that there are times when some of these relief pitchers come in and it's not clean. Now, preferably, I would love it to be clean, and in the playoffs, I want it to be clean, but we're humans, and you're not going to have it on that particular day. So what do you do when it gets messy? How does it look when it gets sticky? Do you have the balls? Do you have the cojones to step up on that bump, take a deep breath, take a few seconds, and then deliver and make the pitch of the at-bat? Or do you come up small and shrink? Jose Alvarado in the 9th? Man, I was listening to Scott Fransky on my drive into the studio, and I was sweating. Foul back, 0-2, battling it off. off. 1-2, 2-2. It's high, full count. Foul ball. Oh, Alvarado got him. I'm like, damn. He's working his ass off, throwing 30-something pitches. And Matt Strahm in this series, something very similar where he was battling himself. I am proud of what this team has done. But I do wonder if this is going to look completely different. And I asked a lot of people tonight when I hosted after the afternoon show, are you focusing more on the frustration that occurred over the 6 games? Because there was a lot of frustration. You just left too many guys on. You couldn't get the timely hit. And I used to talk myself into this all the time, that the more and more you get a lot of guys on base, it's eventually going to work out in your favor when you have this type of lethal talent. Especially knowing Nick is walking more, right? Outside of that first game against Mackenzie Gore, it's not as if their strikeout rate is alarming and smacking you in the face because it's so detrimental. I mean, they clearly cleaned up that aspect of their game. So maybe will the frustration of leaving guys on base and not getting the timely hits, will that sit with you more as you enter into this Dodger series? And it was about 50-50, I'd be honest with you. It was about split. The ones that think that, hey, listen, you have great starting pitching. Schwarber can hit a nuke. What are the odds that you get bases loaded, no outs, and they don't get a run across the board? And you're probably right. With Bone, Bryce, and Kyle up, bases loaded, no outs, with the bottom of your lineup thriving and then turning the lineup over for your top big money players, what are the chances that it's going to be that rough? Especially after it already happened. Now, maybe there's a different emphasis. Maybe there's a different approach. Maybe there's a different attack because you know you can't let that happen again. Hey, it may have happened against a weaker opponent, but against the Dodgers, if that's going to transpire, you're fucked. Maybe that type of attitude and that edge is what can be the difference down the road and even against a Dodgers team this upcoming weekend. Maybe. But it was split.